If you've been waiting to buy a new F-150 or waiting for the next generation F-150 or waiting to buy a new truck at all, I got maybe some bad news for you. Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus History Talk. I just published a story on pickuptrucktalk.com about a massive fire at a key aluminum supplier that's going to really impact Ford. And we're just now hearing all the details as far as how much it's going to cost. Analysts say it's going to cost over $1 billion to the Ford Motor Company. And I think it's going to cost a lot more to the overall industry as it impacts other suppliers. Here's what you need to know. The fire took place on September 16th, I believe, 2025. And this is the fire inside the plant. I have some more photos for you as well. I didn't hear this story until maybe a week ago. I've been kind of slowly following it, waiting for some numbers, and we finally got some numbers from analysts. It's going to cost the company $1 billion. Been a tough year for automakers. We've had some tariffs impacting steel aluminum prices, parts issues with Mexico. We have some concerns about tariffs there as well. We had slowing demand for electric vehicles, and now, boom, we have a big fire. So the fire on September 16, 2025, is expected to force the plant to be shut down until the first quarter of 2026. The plant supplies much aluminum used on the F-150 truck. A Syracuse.com story said the fire broke out about 10 p.m. It took firefighters from more than 20 departments more than 4 hours to put out the blaze. The company said the fire mostly destroyed the roof of the Novelis plant, that's the company's name, in Oswego, New York. That facility is a 1.4 million square foot building. More than 1,000 workers plant will be unpaid while the plant undergoes repairs. Before we get more of the story, let's look at the photos I kind of had Googled here. And it is incredible, these photos. You're talking about an amazing blaze. And from what I can tell from the news stories I kind of clicked through, I didn't see any reports of anyone being injured, thank God, because this was quite the scene. I can't imagine 4 hours battling blaze with these 20 departments. These guys got to tell this story for the rest of their lives. So what's going on? Why is it a big deal? Well, if you remember, in 2015, the Ford F-150 went fully aluminum, all the way around the body. The entire body went aluminum. So this truck depends a lot on aluminum. Well, aluminum supplier goes under, it's an issue. The day after the blaze, the Ford stock price dropped 6%. Now, there's this company called Evercore that is an analyst group, and they put out a note talking to investors saying they expect the automaker to lose $1 billion. A Ford spokesman talked with Reuters and said, Novelis is one of several aluminum suppliers of Ford. Since the fire nearly 3 weeks ago, Ford has been working closely with Novelis, and a full team is dedicated to addressing the situation, exploring all possible alternatives to minimize any potential disruptions. It's a pretty stock quote, yeah. Like, we know there's a fire. We're doing our best to figure out where to get more aluminum from. The thing is that Novelis supplies roughly 40% of the total amount of aluminum sheet metal used by U.S. automakers, U.S.-based companies here, as far as plants in the United States, and counts Ford as its biggest customer. So Evercore said that they believe this is largely a Ford issue at this time, although they're continuing to check on knock-on effects for Stellantis and Toyota and probably GM as well. Because really what you're looking at here is when you look at these vehicles these days, my rule of thumb has been anything that swings. So if you have a hood, a door, a tailgate, anything that swings is starting to become more and more made out of aluminum. Cuts down weight, and it makes it easy for the automakers to do. Usually, the other panels are still steel. So keep that in mind. So most vehicles hoods, most vehicles tailgates, most vehicles doors are aluminum. So you can see that going to happen for other automakers like GM. I think does most hoods these days. The Ram does most hoods, and most doors as well are aluminum. There are alternative suppliers like Arconic. This is interesting. I had to go back in time a little bit and look at this, and we'll get the story in just a second. But I also want to put a little note in here about new F-150 being delayed because new F-150 next generation was supposed to come out next year. It's supposed to come out this year. It got pushed back because Ford did not want to make the capital investments this year because we had a lot of economic uncertainty. And so whenever there's uncertainty, automakers and businesses overall don't invest. They hold their investments. They want to see how things pan out. So now you have a major supplier that's having issues getting back and running again. It could be interesting what's going to happen with this. Could be just a few months, could be a few weeks. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But let's go back to this Arconic story. And I'm going to call them Alcoa because that's how I remember them. And it's in Davenport, Iowa. So you see this name here, Tim Esterdahl. Yeah. I did the story back in May 25th, 2017 for Truck Trend at the time that became Motor Trend, the Ralston company. And I toured an aluminum plant. This was fascinating. I didn't know the story was still on here. And so, a little backstory for those. I'll take a moment here to say the story. Uh, my family is from the Quad Cities. So, if you see the name below, Estradal, and you happen to live in the Quad Cities, you may remember this name as far as mortuaries. My I think great grandfather, three greats, started a mortuary, and we still see the signs around the area, like so. And there was a point in time that if you died in, like, say, Moline, Illinois, that one of my uncles would handle the service at the mortuary. Another uncle would, or my grandfather, be at the cemetery, and my dad would be digging your grave. So that's kind of fun. Yeah, back to Arconic. So this is an aluminum plant, and these things are massive structures as far as buildings. This one could actually house an 18-hole golf course inside the building, and they make massive things of sheets of metal, and they roll them up, and then they get shipped up to Michigan. They get stamped, and then they monitor the whole process. And it's really interesting walking around this place because you could have like 50 workers there, and you wouldn't see anybody for 20 minutes walking around. It's, it is such a massive thing. They have their own fire department on staff because they have to. Again, really big buildings, and it's right along the Mississippi River. Why? Well, go back in time. Mississippi River was the nation's first highway. You could put things on barges and ship it all the way down New Orleans and ship it out from there. So this was a really interesting plant tour I did. I happened to be driving through the area. I was thinking it was on my way to Chicago Auto Show, and I happened to drive over and just do a plant tour because I'm a journalist and I thought it was interesting. And this was right around the time that the Ford F-150 had come out, I think the year before. And this plant was one of the suppliers that was supplying some of the Ford F-150 aluminum to Michigan. And they would send the steel up there. They would cut off some of the scrap and send it back. And then they would melt it down again and turn it back into more aluminum for Ford to cut out for stamping. So this was one of the ways that Ford was able to maximize the amount of production they were doing for that truck. If I remember the story correctly, again, it's been 9 years, 8, 9 years since I did this story. But yeah, it was really interesting walking around and seeing the types of different types of way they've done aluminum and how they got it to production and how much it weighed, and yeah, interesting stuff there. So that's how they roll the steel, and they stamped it and they heated it, and yeah, interesting stuff. So uh Arconic was I don't know if I can get all these photos. Arconic was the name of the company. Alcoa was the way people remembered it back then because they've always been called Alcoa, and they changed their name. So it was a touring and aluminum production plant. So interesting. Back to the over to the article. So yeah, along Mississippi River. I want to say how big this plant was: 6.5 million square foot structure. Yeah, so it's even bigger. I think it was even bigger than the other plant was. Yeah. It is a very these things are really interesting to see. So, anyways, enough of the story. Enough of me rambling. It's this is just a fascinating story. Fascinating book back in time. But I wanted to share the story with you guys about the Ford going with the production issues with aluminum. I think it's a really big deal, especially for dealer. You may have vehicles being delayed coming to your dealership because they don't have aluminum. Trying to source them to other places. There's going to be a production hiccup at some point. I expect not having enough aluminum to build, and then having other brands not having enough for their hoods, doors, and tailgates. So thank you for your trip down memory lane. Hopefully you made it through the video this far. Sorry, I just had to show that to you. That was really interesting. For more interesting stuff, check the website down below as well, pickuptrucktalk.com. Other videos up over here. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.